My dear brothers and sisters, reflecting as we are on the ones who have gone before us, and also at the time of the pandemic, I've chosen 4 traits of my mum, 4 qualities of my mum, which I believe we can also apply to our own lives. And the first of these is my mum's resourcefulness. Resourcefulness might also be termed as intuition. It might also be termed as reading the signs of the times. And that is something which is very much required today. When we were growing up, we were 5 children. My mum was a stay-at-home mum, and my dad was the only working member in the family. So for about close to 20 years after marriage, when my eldest brother first began working, mum had to manage every single expense of the house with one salary. And she did it with elan. She did it in the best manner that none of us, 5 as we were, experienced any kind of shortage. Fees had to be paid, books had to be purchased, uniforms had to be bought, food had to be provided on a regular basis. I still remember very clearly that not only did we have 3 meals like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for tea every evening at 4 when we returned from school, my mum would prepare something with her hands. And the first question when my brother and I returned from school, I still remember, was, "What's for tea?" Because we knew that every single day my mum would prepare something for us. What's for tea? That became a question we would ask as soon as we entered the house. And so I also term this intuition and resourcefulness as cutting your coat according to your cloth. We are living in times when so many of our brothers and sisters, so many of those we know have been made redundant, have been told that there is no work. So many of the daily wage earners have gone back to where they came from because there is no job. And if there is no job, there is no money. And if there is no money, they cannot eat. This is a time when every one of us has to cut our coats according to our cloth. It is true that we might want this, or we might want that, or we might want something else. And yet, what is important is that we must keep in mind that we must only focus now on our needs. And every time a desire arises in my heart for something which I want, let my mind, let my heart go to those who are suffering and who do not even have a square meal. The second quality of my mum was that she was a woman who was able to live in the present moment. For her, the past was the past and we could learn from it. The future was the future and we should never be obsessed by it. What was important was the present, and we must live in the present. The present was the only gift given to us, and that is why the present is the present. Today, possibly more than at other times, we have realized how precious this moment is. We have realized how precious the gift of breath is. We have realized how precious the gift of life is. And so today, even as I remember my mother, I remember this gift that she gave me, and I try as much as I can not to be obsessed with the future. Surely we must plan for the future, but we must never be obsessed by it, and to have no regrets about the past, even though we may have made a number of mistakes. We learn from those mistakes and avoid repeating them. But what we do primarily is that we live in the present moment. The third gift my mom left us as a legacy is the gift of perseverance. In Marathi, the word for perseverance is chikatipana, or stickability. It means that we never ever give up. We never ever give in. And at these times, I think this quality is really very much required. There is every possibility that because things do not improve, there is every possibility that because things do not go the way we want them to go, we might tend to give up. We might tend to lose hope. And that is why at the entrance, I took the hymn, "In the Lord is my hope." And finally, the gift of faith. I first learned about the goodness of God, about the magnanimity of God, about the forgiveness and mercy and unconditional love of God on the lap and in the arms of my mother. And this is the faith that she communicated to me. The faith which said it did not matter what name you used to address God. It did not matter what language you spoke with God in. It did not matter whether you did this ritual or that, whether you in this place or that. What mattered was that you continued to believe that God always wanted what is best for you. That God would never do anything that was to your detriment, that everything that happened was ordained by God after you had done your best. You did whatever was required of you. You left no stone unturned. You scattered the seed as you were meant to. You did your job. And after you did your job, you left the rest to God. You left the result to God. You did not bother about the result because you knew that God would make it work as according to God's will. Sometimes your will and God's will would coincide. At other times, it would not. And that is why every time we prayed, the end of our prayer was, this is what we require, this is what we want, but not as we will, God, but as you will. Every one of us will also want this and that. And there are times when it fits in with God's will and we will get what we want. And yet there are times when God's will may be exactly the opposite of ours, and at those times we must dare to add to the end of our prayer, God, not my will, not our will, but your will be done. Amen.